Welcome to Gay Men Going Deeper, a podcast series by the Gay Men's Brotherhood where we talk about personal development, mental health, and sexuality. We are your hosts. We have Michael Diorio, he is a life and wellness coach specializing in sexuality, relationships, and self-confidence. Reno Johnston, who's a life coach, business consultant, and director of marketing for Body Electric. And I am Matt Lancedo, an intuitive life and spiritual coach and counselor specializing in healing and empowerment. So we have our own coaching practices, but in this podcast, we're sharing all of our best stuff. And Reno, welcome back.
Yay, welcome back.
We'll do a little intro after. I was excited, so I wanted to say that. Okay, so today is a two-parter. So we're going to be doing external and internal validation. So we got lots of good stuff for you. This was a very big topic, and we figured, you know what, we need to do this in two parts because there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to be talking about and exploring questions such as, in what ways do you see over-reliance on external validation in the gay community? In what ways do you seek external validation? What do you find beneficial about external validation? And then we're going to move into internal validation, which is what gets in the way of you feeling internally validated. How do you practice internal validation? And how have you learned to be more balanced when it comes to feeling valuable? So some big, hefty questions there for us. Okay, so we'll continue these discussions on the last Thursday of every month in the Gay Men's Brotherhood Zoom Hangout, where you'll have a chance to share your own experiences. So come join us. This podcast and YouTube channel are listener and viewer supported. If you enjoy what we're creating, you can support us by making a donation to the show using the link in the show notes. You can also subscribe to early access option on Apple and listen ad-free and gain early access to episodes. All your support helps us to continue making content for you and supporting our community, and we do thank you in advance. If you're looking to accelerate your personal development journey, check out our new coaching collection. Learn how to heal and empower yourself at your own pace by getting instant access to 45 premium personal development coaching videos created by us, as well as our Healing Your Shame and Building Better Relationships courses. So you can head over to gaymengoingdeeper.com for more information about that. Okay, so internal and external validation. So this topic is essentially like, validation is this, people validating us, people telling us that we're okay, we measure up. This is also can also be like categorized as approval. So there's two forms of this. Obviously, we can do this from outside of ourselves, or we can do this from inside of ourselves. They're both valid, they're both important, they're both part of us being social creatures. So we want to look at this because we have really seen a lot of in the gay community that there's a lot of more reliance on external validation than internal. And this internal really plays on self-worth, right? So we want to learn how to internally validate and improve of ourselves so we can feel worthy and be in our power and not constantly be giving our power away to other people to tell us that we're worthy. So if you look at like validation for what, like what are we seeking validation for? And I wrote down a couple things that came to mind. So again, one is worthiness. One could be feeling valuable, approval, that we measure up, that we're liked, that we're attractive. So these are things that we can often easily outsource to other people and learn, and then we learn to not do this for ourselves. So the goal of this episode is to really teach people balance between these two. In an ideal world, we want to have 50-50 because we're social creatures. We need I honestly think it is a need. We need validation from other people because if you think about growing up within our family systems and how we were, like we would do something and we would look to our parents or our caregivers to see if it was right, if we were doing a good job, right? And then when we got that validation, we would continue to mimic what we were doing. We would continue to conform. We would get more validation. And this is how we'd really develop a sense of self, right? So if you think about this, we actually cannot have a sense of self without the other, right? Self and other go together. We can't actually be a self when we don't have an other to differentiate or individuate away from. So this is really important to note because our sense of self is developed through interaction with others. Mostly at the very beginning, it's going to be our caregivers within our family system. And then we learn how to do this with peers, right? And this is what makes us social creatures. So it's important to note that um, we can enjoy external validation, but we must not run away from our authentic path if it is not available to us. And this means that we, having external validation can feel really good, but when we don't get it, it's important for us to honor us. Go inside, search inside yourself, and say, okay, what am I actually looking for here? What do I need to move towards? And I know a lot of us were on this journey, right? We're on this journey to discover this and to get better at doing this. And I speak for myself that this has been a huge struggle of mine in my life, and my ego needed validation in order to feel worthy. And I've done a lot of work to deprogram this, and I have a lot to share about this today. So I'm excited about that. And then I just wrote here, over-reliance on external validation can lead to a fragile sense of self where we outsource our authority and our power to others, right? If that's our only source, if we're 95% motivated by external, we're going to have a fragile sense of self because everyone else tells us who we are, that we're worthy, that it's okay to be in our power, it's okay to make this decision, and we lose our connection to our authentic self. So that's really important to note. And then the other thing is, if we're giving our power and our authority to other people, there's a potential that we're going to be really hypersensitive to criticism, right? Because we don't have that I am enough, I am worthy internally. We have to seek it from outside of ourselves. So if the people that are giving us validation suddenly turn on us and start giving us criticism, what does that say, right? We're going to be very hypersensitive to that, and it's probably going to completely derail us. Right. So this is the whole purpose of today's episode. And I'm really excited to share. And I know you guys are too. I know you guys have made it quite, far on your journey to developing a stronger sense of you. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have to share on that. So yeah, before we go into the questions, I just want to welcome you back, Reno. I think it's been, I didn't even actually look, but it's been about a year, maybe even a year and a half. And
Wow.
yeah, we connected, what was it, about a month and a half ago, and it was just really nice to plug back in and just use the mirror of you to see my own growth and just to see your growth over the last year and a half. It's like been tremendous. So
I know.
yeah, it's really, really great to have you back. I want to give you an opportunity just to share with the audience like what's been going on in your world over the last year and a half before we hop in. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Well, in line with the topic, I just want to take a moment to celebrate the amazing things that you're all up to in this community. I feel like it's grown so much, and when you were sharing all of the different things that the community had access to, I had to hold back. I wanted to interject and say y'all are doing big things. So congratulations. And Michael, I see you all over Instagram all the time, and that is so exciting. And there's a confidence and an unabashedness and a shamelessness that I really, really celebrate. It's beautiful to see you blossom, and to have watched you blossom. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. And I guess on my end, gosh, so probably like 2 years, 3 months ago, I moved to the West Coast. And that was a really sort of intuitive and inspired decision. I had no idea what was waiting for me there. And I just kind of followed this deeper feeling, which I tend to follow through life. And I have some pretty interesting stories about where that's led me. And this was no exception. So, I connected with my biological father. I met aunts and siblings and cousins and people that I didn't know were there. I discovered that I have history tied to that place that I didn't know I had. I mean, yeah, so many things. I moved into a house with, 5 other people, and it's this beautiful communal space, and I've really enjoyed that. And I've seen my business do all sorts of interesting things, and then I kind of stepped back from that and found myself in this position as the director of marketing for this erotic school. And it's just like, and again, that was another one of those situations where I felt this like nudge in a particular direction, had no clue where it was going to take me and just kind of showed up and said yes to it. And then before I knew it, here I am. So my life seems to be a series of like those kinds of events and me listening to and following that intuitive nudge. And and then all this synchronicity, which I think in a way kind of brought me here. Like it's so interesting to be back here and just the way that things kind of unfolded, the grace with which they unfolded. It's like it's not really surprising, and yet it's still just really exciting to see that playing out in my life, in our lives, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and loving life on the West Coast. It's been really delicious and also like really challenging in moments too, like really challenging in moments. But I found a place that my body feels really at home in. And the last thing I'll say is I'm back in my hometown visiting and I'm on this podcast, which this like wild sort of full circle thing because yeah, it's just really interesting how things work. A total sort of walk down memory lane. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Super happy to be here. Really happy to be connecting with you guys in the community. And yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people still talk about you, Reno. We've had, I don't know exactly how many episodes we've had since was your last episode, but we still
Yeah.
get people commenting on, episodes from way back in 2020. So I'm very certain that there's going to be a lot of people who are very happy to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes me happy. I'm receiving that external validation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Good
it's
segue.
lovely. It's lovely. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you bring back the water vibes because we, Michael and I are air, Callan was air, so you're bringing in some good Scorpio energy.
Okay, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move into this. So we'll start with Michael. So in what ways do you see over-reliance on external validation in the gay community?
Lots of ways. So I really highlighted the word for me here is over-reliance on external validation, right? Because like you had said it in your opener, we need validation externally.
Totally.
We need people to kind of tell us that, hey, we're on the right track and whatnot. I think we'll get into that question later. But what got me thinking is like, how do you know when you're just regular relying versus over relying? And so that's where I kind of wanted to start today. And I asked myself that question because I have been in this, and I do tend to like go towards that and then kind of bring myself back towards that more middle ground 50-50. But here's how I know. And it's when the more I get the external validation, the more I crave it, the more I need it. So it's like, oh, this feels so good. Give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more. And it's almost as desperate, like, yeah. Like I become a validation junkie, just wanting the next hit of it, right? So that's the one way that I know that I'm getting into the like, okay, it's over reliance. And then the other ways, like you had said, Matt, when I become extra sensitive, maybe I'll use the word fragile to criticism or to what I perceive as invalidation. So it could be like the slightest rejection. It could be someone making like one little comment about something or like a light teasing, and it'll hit me really hard. And so like that reaction within me is disproportionate to like the situation. So those are the two ways that I want to kind of highlight the over reliance piece. There's really nothing wrong with wanting and liking external validation. Okay, now to answer the question. Okay, so in the gay community, I mean, I think the most obvious one that I see on Instagram and probably all over is body. We talked about this in our last, I think it was our March episodes about body. We as a community, I'm generalizing here, but use that body, and I'm speaking, I have done this many times, I still do to some degree, to get that validation. Like and I'm not talking about just the body in general, I'm talking about like the body, like the kind of body that like, gay men think that they have to, that we've decided is sexy. The young one, the one with the abs and the muscles and the small waist and the bubble butt, that kind of body. So that is one way I think, we as a community, again, generalizing, can over rely on that as a way to get our sense of, hey, look, I'm attractive. Hey, look, I'm worthy. Hey, look, I'm worthy of your attention, your love, whatever it is that is. In a similar vein, slightly tied to that, is sexual prowess. So sex for sport. Um, collecting all these sexual encounters that validates us as being worthy of, first of all, validates us as being attractive. Like, oh, look, I'm attractive. Look how many people I fucked. Sexy, worthy of others' attention. Again, speaking for myself here, because this was very much my story for probably a good decade of my life. And that's kind of how I was telling myself I'm part of this community. Oh, look, I'm part of the community too. Like I can have the fun. I can do the hookups. I can do the thing. So those are two that are really personal to me. One that isn't so personal to me, but I see a lot, is like over-reliance in like the material things, like the appearance of having it all. Right, like, oh, my brand name thanks, and look at this, all the, I don't know brand names. I'm not a fashionista at all. Yeah, like I shop at vintage stores in Kensington Market, but that kind of thing, like the Gucci's and all these things, and being part of that elite circle that also value those same things, and they kind of just have this like validational circle jerk where they're all just jerking each other off, which, by the way, is totally arbitrary. The fact that these people consider themselves the elite, I cannot stand that. It's like one of my pet peeves when people say, "Oh, the elite gays." I'm like, bitch, this is not an elite. This is not for real. This is an arbitrary thing that they have made up and you are buying into. Let's not do that. And when I'm in these circles, so when I'm in, like, let's say a party, or we have an event here. I don't want to say the name of it, but there's an event here that happens once a year that is very much of the elite gays. And it's really kind of funny to me because these people don't even like each other most of the time. And it's like you're trying to win each other's approval for people you don't even like. And in fact, as soon as they turn around, you like shit talk them. So I find it quite funny, but I think I'll leave my answer there. Those are, I think, the ways that I see specifically with the gays that we can over rely on the external validation.
Maybe they don't even like themselves either.
Fair. Right? Probably very true.
Yeah. The mean gays, it's usually a sign that they don't like themselves either. That's why they're
exactly mean. Yeah.
What about you, Reno? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that you said, Michael, that I observed. Certainly I think the body image is a big one. And let me just kind of speak to, I think what I want to speak to is like my own experience, because what I found within the community was that well, first it was my body, that was a big one. And my physical appearance, and this kind of goes without saying, but I feel like one of the things that I struggled with as well was being a person of color and really feeling like somehow my value was diminished as a result of that, where I was seen as less valuable as a result of that. And I found myself really striving to create an image that inspired more like increased external validation and sort of upped my value. And that sometimes looked like, wanting like a lighter skin tone, or a lighter eye color, or straighter hair, or, a different sort of physical appearance, like a sort of more muscular physique, for example. And as you mentioned earlier, like the sort of designer threads and things like that. And my sense is that, like, I didn't come in caring about that stuff, it was like me in my glory. I'm like, give me, a cute vest that's thrifted, or like a tank top and like shorts that I can maybe swim in and move comfortably in. And like, I'm good. That's like, I'm the most comfortable in that kind of attire. And then every once in a while, I'll sort of like, play it up. I like luxury too, but I don't rely on it. I don't depend on it. It doesn't sort of define my value. But I certainly see a lot of that within the gay community. And then I think too, it seems quite prevalent on some of these, like, these apps, you know, like I'm thinking about like Grindr, for example. Bless it, it's a tool and it serves a purpose. And, you know, depending on how we use it, we have a certain experience. But I would say within a space like that, there's just so much of this sort of like, you know, you look at a picture and then within that, you know, 10 seconds, you kind of decide like who this person is and whether they're worth your time and whatnot. And yeah, that it's unfortunate in a way, but it's also part of the journey and the process. And ideally we sort of come around and realize some of the things that we've shared here and we'll probably dive into throughout the conversation. Yeah. And what about you, Matt? Did you share already?
Well, no, I want to paint a bit of a picture because I think, you know, this is what I'm good at. I'm good at kind of like looking for roots and like, where is this stuff coming from? You know what I mean? Like kind of the psychology behind it. And I want to share that because you guys really covered everything that I have. But there's one thing, like the topic of the month in the Gay Men's Brotherhood and where these two ideas came from is about shame. And most people, you might not realize, like the topic is called healing shame. So you might not realize that reliance on external validation, the root is usually shame or inadequacy, like I'm not good enough or something is wrong with me. And then what we do is we start to seek outside of ourselves for I'm not wrong, I'm worthy. And that's where this comes from, because shame, it makes it when we're in toxic shame, it makes it really hard for us to develop a strong sense of I am worthy, because we don't feel it. We feel defective, broken, that there's something about us that needs to be fixed, whatever it might be. So I wanted to point that out from the top. And I personally believe, this is my personal belief, that finding balance between external and internal validation or correcting the heavy reliance on external validation, it requires a process of healing shame. So the healing shame course that we have is really, that's one of the main pieces of it, is looking at the ways in which you're seeking validation outside yourself, because you got to stop the bleeding if you want to therefore then keep your power, right? Leaking power out, one of the ways that we do that is over reliance on external validation. So I want people just to think today over the course of these two episodes is like thinking about the ways in which you're doing this and the intention behind it. And oftentimes it's going to be hard for us to make a connection between the unhealthy ways we're doing it and that, because our ego is so defensive against looking at any dysfunction that we have in our life. So it's like, it will take probably a lot of radical honesty. So for example, like people that are posting thirst traps, and their main intention is to get, you know, validation from people because they don't feel good within themselves. Get really honest about that. Don't shame yourself for doing it. Just get really honest about, like, why am I doing this? Why am I posting this? What's the intention behind it? That will lead you to the solution that you need in order to kind of heal this part of you that's seeking the external validation. So I wanted to
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and like, I love a good thirst trap. I love them. I love posting them.
Yeah.
I'm aware, like you said, exactly. No, Michael. I love your thirst traps. Yeah. I love a good thirst trap. I love seeing them. I love sharing them. You know, I love validating people who posted them. I love receiving the validation. But like you said, there's an awareness and there's an myself. Like, I'm putting this out there for that reason. I'm aware of it. You know, it's embodied. I think that's the difference. It's an embodied action. Whereas I think previously that stuff, it not only was it not embodied, but it was sort of filling, like, you know, if you were to imagine sort of like a paper cup with a hole in the bottom, it was kind of filling this like paper cup, you know. Now not so much, right? So yeah, I love what you said about being honest with yourself. Like, this is what this is about, and I'm gonna own it.
Yeah, exactly. And like everything, there's a shadow side to this stuff. There's a shadow side to the thirst traps. And I think that's maybe what I want to highlight today, because I'm just like you guys, and I like to post one once in a while too. Usually a butt photo in nature once a year. That's my thing.
I was just going to mention that one. Yeah.
I saw that one.
So,
yeah,
so
we
I
all
get
did.
it.
I think we all did.
I get it. And I think it's beautiful. And I think it's important for us to share the body, but with the shadow side to it is the perfectionism side. And what people don't see, and this is the harmful side of things like Instagram and Facebook and social media in general, is that how many times did you have to take that photo for it to look perfect and for it to look the way that, right? And then what happens is you have other guys that are comparing themselves to this, and how many filters did you use, right? So there's the perfectionism is a big part of this, because when we're seeking external validation from the shadow side, we're doing it from a very perfectionistic place, right? So I also love thirst traps that are just very natural and organic, and people just sharing their unfiltered self, because I think that's beautiful. And I think as gay men, we need to see more of that, like none of this like refined perfectionistic stuff. So that's really, really important. So perfectionism would be like appearing to be something that you aren't, and trying to manicure your image in a way that it makes you get validation from people, but it's not really authentically you, right? And who you are. That would be the shadow side to it. But just like technical things, like I wrote down, so I think I put it into like 3 categories. So body validation, which is thirst traps, sex, attractiveness, this kind of whole category. Material validation, which would be like money, status, and power. And then emotional validation. So, tell me that who I am and how I feel is enough. So emotional validation is actually something that we all need. It's very important. But it's part of, again, there's a shadow side to it as well. If we're constantly outsourcing people to tell us that it's okay how we're feeling, it's going to lead to problematic behavior and psychology. So yeah, I feel like that's probably, I feel complete on that topic. Do you
I
guys
love that you broke it down into categories too. Like that's so cool. I never thought of it that way. And I'm thinking of like other categories that you could maybe, the other categories that this could apply to as well. That's really cool. I never sort of thought of it or viewed it that frame. So thank you for that. That's really cool. Yeah.
I'm glad it landed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go into the second question. So in what ways do you seek external validation? So let's expose ourselves a bit here.
All the ways.
All the ways,
yes.
Yeah. Like, what do you want to give me? I'll take it.
Yes.
I'll take it. I'll take all the validation you want to throw at me. Of course. Why wouldn't I, right? Who doesn't want to be validated? So yeah, I really, like, I'm joking, but it's true. I think what I've relied on for me is what I spoke about earlier, is sex and body. In the gay sense. I think if I go beyond that, like before that, I've always wanted to be validated from like authority figures like parents and teachers. I was the good boy. I want to be the good son. I want to be the good student. I got straight A's. So that kind of goes back to it, but that kind of feeds into my perfectionism. I'm really happy you mentioned that, Matt, because I was thinking that for me, they're very much tied in together. So the example I want to use is during COVID. Everything was locked down here in Ontario. So I wasn't able to go to the gym, and I gained about 15 pounds because I was at home eating takeout, working 20 hours a day, not doing anything. So yeah, I gained about 15 pounds. Typically, I love showing body on Instagram and all the things, and it was fine. I enjoyed it once in a while. But then I remember being at the beach with my friends. I think it was the summer of 2020, just during COVID and stuff. And I saw the picture that my friend was going to post, and I had this dread, and I was like, "Oh no. Like you can't post that." But I was watching in my brain what was happening. Like, oh my gosh, Michael, like you still got some work to do here, my friend. Because it was fine when I had the body that I wanted to show, that perfectionism. Like, okay, this is acceptable for me to post or for people to see. But seeing that other version of me that I didn't like so much was really hard. And so that was really challenging for me. Ultimately, of course, I let him do it, but I had to do the work. Like, I know that, like, it's not a him problem. This is a me problem. Like, why do I not want this, right? Especially because it was a group of us and there's a whole bunch of us. So like that just made it worse, the comparing factor. So I think that kind of reminded me that, okay, this is still something that I need to kind of bring myself back to. Also, I would say these days it's more about like, I really like being validated with respect to my business ventures because it's kind of new for me. And you know, I love when people give me the accolades or the validation of, you know, something that I posted. Like that's not necessarily about my looks, but more so about the content. And I will say this on Instagram, I could post a picture of myself like not saying anything intelligent or inspirational. It'll get like 10 times more likes than something I put a lot of thought into and a lot of, there's like words and text. People like, what? Words and text? No, next, I know, right? But I do really actually appreciate the validation that comes with the words and text these days more than I do the body stuff. Yeah, so I think that answers the question for me. I will say as well, these days, what makes it different in how I know that I'm not too far into the over reliance is that if I post that picture, let's say at the beach where I had the 15 extra pounds on my belly and all these things, I can come back to myself and have like a soft landing on the inside.
Yeah.
Like this really sucks, but like I'm not going to use it to beat the shit out of myself. I'm going to use this as a way to like find that self-compassion, remembering that validation from external like ebbs and flows. They are at the whim of other people's opinions, which change at a dime. So it doesn't need to be a constant flow. I kind of have to like learn. Sometimes I'm going to get the validation. Sometimes I'm going to put like lots of work into something and it's going to be dead air. And that's okay. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I kind of copped out with everything, but that's my answer. How about you, Reno?
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that. It's all the ways. You know, tell me I'm cute, tell me I'm sexy, tell me my body is great, tell me you love my chest hair and my beard, tell me my outfit looks cute, tell me how smart I am or how genuine I am or what a good person I am. Sometimes tell me what a bitch I am. Like that sometimes feels good too, you know, because I'm like, oh, okay, so, you know, like there's something working there. Yeah, I think those are some of the ways. And then on occasion, I'll, you know, maybe hop on social media and share something that I think is profound, or it'll be me like on the pole. We just installed a pole in the living room and I'm, you know, hanging from that thing and it's so much fun. And I feel really sexy. And I love when people send those little hearts or fire emojis and stuff like that. So it's great. And I know when I'm doing it. And I don't really have any shame about doing it at this point. But yeah, I think I want to kind of slow down here and check in. Like what are some of the other ways I see? I really like to look good in a photo. You know, get me from the right angle, please. and 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 also I would say that a strong archetype or a strong archetypal presence in me is the performer. You know, like I certainly love to perform. And I love to perform because I enjoy being externally validated. And I also love to perform because of how it inspires and activates and galvanizes other people, how it moves people to feel and be sort of turned on and to come alive. So that's really exciting to me. And I also think external validation informs my ideas about my identity. And in some ways I can find that helpful, like understanding how a person experiences me communicates to me like maybe the sort of content of that relationship and allows me to decide and choose how whether I want to continue orienting myself in that way with that person or to kind of like switch it up. So there are valuable aspects to it for sure. And I would say that's generally it. And something I'm noticing more and more as time goes on is I actually really value being perceived as invalidated for my wisdom and intellect. And so that's been interesting, like playing with that, kind of welcoming it and desiring it, but also like maybe letting some of it go and being okay with not being perceived that way, and just, recognizing that there is intelligence here, there is intellect here, and yeah. So I think those are some of the ways.
Can I validate you right now, Reno?
Oh, please.
Your moves. You said all these great things, but like the way you dance and the way you shake
Oh, how
on
could I
Oceania,
forget that?
yeah, of
Thank
course.
you. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And wait, I want to validate both of you in this. You look really good in this navy, is it? This blue color?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he does.
and Matt, something I don't think I've ever, maybe I've told you this explicitly, I'm not sure, but like I love how you smell.
Thank you.
Yes, I love the way you smell. I mean, I could say a whole bunch of other things, but it just came to me when I was sitting here. It's like, oh yeah, I remember really liking how Matt smells. Yeah.
Oh, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I stimulate your olfactory senses.
There we go. That's it. Yeah.
That's great. I want to point out, I said off the top that we're air, you're water. A perfect example is, let me just slow down and tune in. It's like, it's so nice and it's so good for me. Like I need to slow down. Like I'm going a mile a minute. And so I'm so glad to have your presence back here, because it's it roots me back down into my body. So thank you for that. That was really beautiful. Because when you did that, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like I can breathe, so that's beautiful. I want to come back. I want to circle back to you guys, and I want to ask you, what's the ultimate compliment that somebody could give you? But I'm going to do, I'll do my spiel, and then we'll come back so you guys can have a moment to think about it.
Love that.
Okay, so in what ways do I seek external validation? So my content, my wisdom, I feel like that's definitely in that same arena. Like part of my dharma and my life path is to create and to inspire. And so when people say to me, your work has really helped me transform my life, or it's inspired me to be more authentic, or whatever, that is really, really, it feels really good to me. And that is one of the main motivators of why I do what I do. So I love that. My appearance, definitely, but I've toned this one down, and this topic of external validation is so close. It hits so close to home for me, because I realized about 4 years ago that I was about 95.5% ratio leaning towards external, and it was all about my body, my appearance, how fit I looked. And I realized that I was giving away all of my power to the external world to tell me how I could feel about myself. And I had an epiphany when I was on stage for my fitness competition, and it was like something clicked, and it was like, what am I doing? I'm literally posing and flexing my muscles on a stage so people can rate me and tell me how worthy I am. And I was like, boom, from that point forward, I stopped working out. I went internal, moved to Asia, did all this deep inner work on letting go of my attachment to my appearance. And I really did. But I swung the other way. I got angry when people told me I was attractive. I shut off my sexuality, basically, because I didn't want to be sexualized. And I had to go through this period of really shutting myself down. And now my process is I'm opening myself back up. I'm opening my heart back up. I'm opening up all my sexual centers, because I feel like I've restored balance in myself. So it's like, part of me consciously posting those butt photos in nature is that it's like, I'm going to see, and I'm testing myself to see, am I going to go back to my phone and keep checking and, seeing how many likes I'm getting? And is this going to mean something about me? And it didn't, right? So I'm constantly doing things to test myself to see where I'm at in my process. And so my appearance and my relationship to my appearance has really dramatically changed, because I went through a period in Asia where I call it a turning off the taps of external validation. I literally went to nothing. I stopped seeking validation. I stopped looking at seeing how people would react to me, all of these sorts of things. And I did that for about a year and a half. And it was one of the darkest periods of my life, because I had to go through this real yucky period of not getting validation at all, because I didn't know how to do it internally, and I wasn't receiving it anymore from the external world, and I felt worthless. That's what I had to meet. I felt my lack of worth, and it was really painful. But then I had to do the work to kind of accumulate more connection to myself, and that all happened through my body, believe it or not. Connecting back into the truth of who I was led me to learning how to internally validate, which we'll talk about more after. But and clients, right? Like I do coaching and counseling work. So when I see my clients making progress, or they tell me that I'm, good at what I do, like that really, it feels really good. And I love that. Romantic relationships, I think, is an area, and this is one that I feel like I maybe give away too much authority when it comes to sex and relationships. And I'm still learning how to navigate this, because when I get into a relationship with somebody and I really respect them, like, I find sometimes I can outsource my authority, or like if I'm having a bad day, it's like I want them to tell me I'm attractive, or these sorts of things. So I think I'm still learning in this area, but and then the last one I have here is singing. So I'm on this journey of singing and becoming more performer energy. I think this has always been a part of me. When I was a kid, I was, I see home videos of myself, and I was like running around performing, making everybody laugh. And then somewhere along the way, that part of me was like severed or something. I don't know. It's really weird. So I'm like reconnecting back into this part of me, and I'm having a lot of imposter syndrome around singing and performing. And I feel like, who am I to be doing this? This isn't me. And my self-concept's being really challenged right now. So when my coach, or after my first performance, the guy that hosts the open mic, he was like, wow, you're really good. And he invited me to come to this other open mic. And I got this feeling like, you belong here. And it was just a little tiny hair of a feeling, but it was like, it made me feel like, yes, you know what I mean? Like, it's the little minuscule thing that I needed in order for me to move towards doing what I'm doing. So, okay.
So I want to say that when you were sharing that you are playing in this like performative space and using your voice and singing, like I felt a very strong resonance. Like I felt myself light up from the inside out.
No.
And I think part of it is like, the performer in me loves like seeing other people shine, and people play in that performative space. And I also think like I love seeing you have fun. It's cool. Yeah. So like that's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're one of the people that because we used to hang out in we have hung out in Calgary and Vancouver, and you're like a person that I feel safe with to like be kind of more silly and goofy. Not many people get to see that side of me, and I'm learning how to bring him out more and more. But it's like a safety thing for me. Like I don't feel safe being in that energy with a lot of people. So I'm like learning how to do that with strangers right now, like getting up and performing and fully letting go. It's like, it's a lot. So to get that validation that like, that I belong there, and it's okay to get that, like it does help me settle into like, okay, I can do this, so I'm really learning that external validation is so important in the process of like, even just overcoming imposter syndrome or trying new things. Like we need other people to take our hand and say, it's okay, come with me, I'll show you what I know, right? That takes a lot of humility, right? To in order to surrender to that too. So thank you for that, Reno. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you're making me think of something. I just had this sort of visual in my mind. I was thinking about a plant. I was thinking about a seed in the soil. Also you could think of like a fetus and a sort of offspring like in the womb, and how there's a period of time when it's in the womb, or the seed is in the soil, where it's like it's drawing energy. It's drawing energy from its surroundings to grow itself, and like moms will sometimes say like, that like I love this thing inside of me, and also it's like trying to kill me, but jokingly, but it's like, their hair changes, their skin changes, their energy shifts, and there's a lot happening, because the seed has a lot of energy. But at some point, as it starts to grow and blossom, it develops let's say, new capacities, and it sort of sources in a different way. Now, I think in nature and in life we'll sort of see, and I think we call this, cancer in a way, but we'll sort of see sometimes that something will become so radically out that it starts to kind of like take in excess to the point where it's like, sort of de-energizing whatever's around it, right? And sort of totally sucking the life out of whatever's around it. And it becomes detrimental to that being, right? And so thinking about that as you were speaking, there's sort of this dance where at some point you kind of got to pull back and like get off the teat, so to speak, and start finding other ways, both internally and externally, to meet those needs, and it can't just be from one place and just in excess, get a bottom on your cup, and metaphors and analogies here, but like,
I love it.
Bottom on your cup, find that bottom, get it there, and then start finding different ways to fill it, right?
Amen. Amen. So did you guys have a chance to think about your ultimate compliment?
Okay, I can start. I have like, I think two. Can I say two?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, one that I love is when someone says something like, you just seem so you. Like, it's just so nice to see someone be so themselves. Like, I guess it's genuine. Like, you seem so genuine. That I love. And another one would be, it feels so easy talking to you. Like, that just warms my heart. I love hearing that. Which in my profession is a good one because that's exactly what I want to be good at.
How
about you, Reno?
I mean, as you were sharing it, kind of like I found my answer evolving in a way, but what came through first was, you're beautiful. And I think a second one might be something like, you're brilliant. But when you were sharing, Michael, I think something that I really love to hear, probably even more than those two things, is I feel like I can be myself around you. Iteration of that, like that feels really good.
Same.
Really good.
I like that. We're also similar.
What about you, man?
I would say probably something to do with my energy, because I do a lot of work on like cultivating vibration and like clearing out hate and fear and these things that really inundate the human experience that are natural and normal. But I do a lot of work on these things to try and emanate more love and compassion. And so if somebody's like, I just love being around you, it feels good to be around you, you have a loving energy, or your presence, that sort of thing would be probably really important to me. It feels good.
And you do.
And my ideas, I like when, like thinking about sitting down with somebody and sharing ideas and talking with them, and they're like, man, you bring such great ideas to the table. Like, that would feel good for me too.
That's one of my favorite ways to spend time with you. I feel like
me too.
Like sitting in the car, like jamming out. That's one. It was like, ideally over some plate of like barbecued ribs or something like that, or steak. That's great. But three is just like hanging out and like having these deep philosophical conversations for hours. I love it. So
me too. And we both love hip hop music and jamming out to hip hop. So cruising around Vancouver with my sunroof open and just jamming.
I miss it.
Good times.
Come back soon.
Okay, so last question here. What do you find beneficial about external validation? We've kind of talked a bit about this, but let's go right to the heart of it. What's the juiciness and yumminess of external validation?
I think it's stimulating. I get a rush out of it when it happens, right? It could be fun. If you get good at it, if you get good at finding it in one particular way, like I said at the beginning, you kind of become a bit of a validation junkie adrenaline in that a little bit. Not to say it's good for you necessarily, but there's the dopamine. That dopamine hit feels good. It doesn't last. So besides it feeling good, obviously, like you had talked about in the beginning, it is validation is good for us, legit psychologically. You know, we feel accepted by the tribe. You feel like, okay, cool, I belong here. Like, okay, they accept me. This is my space. I can be safe here. And there's a lot of safety in that. And think of it, in the opposite of like the, you know, getting invalidated or getting rejected or whatever that might be, creates isolation, social isolation. And that's terrifying. We don't want to be, we don't want to be away from the tribe. That's like our primitive brains like death. There's the safety of the tribe, and here I am over here in the jungle by myself about to get eaten by a lion. That's kind of like what's going on there, right? So I think that it is very good for us in that way when we can balance it with the internal, which we can get into more in the next episode.
Yeah. I love that.
I think like one of the benefits, and again, I want to use the analogy of a seedling and a plant growing, is like external validation. Like it can be really nourishing. You know, I think about the way the sun and the rain and the elements, you know, and the like the nutrients within soil nourish a plant, right? And have it grow and sustain. And it's like external validation can be akin to that in a lot of ways. And I think that what is also important is to recognize like our relationship to external validation and like how we're receiving it, and also how it's being given. There's something there about sort of the where it's coming from and the person it's coming from, that sort of in between process, that the sort of synthesization of it, and then like how it's landing and how we're holding it and integrating it. There's like a whole sort of process there that I think is important in like external validation being beneficial, you know. And I think it can be really nourishing, really fulfilling, really uplifting, and also informative. It helps me to maybe understand some of the qualities and the characteristics of my being and my expression, you know, my presence here. It's like, oh, okay, you called me brilliant. I never thought of that. Okay, so there's brilliance here. You called me beautiful. Okay, interesting. So someone sees beauty here. Let me digest that. Okay. You know, so it becomes information as well. And then I think maybe one of the last things I would say is it's connective as well. You know, it's connective as well. And I think that can be really beautiful. Like I have some relationships, and I think like that's really present here among, you know, the three of us, is like I have relationships sometimes where like we're really good at gassing each other up. And I love that sometimes, you know, fill me up. And like, you know, I'm gassing them up. I'm like, yeah, you're the shit. Like, you're beautiful. You're so smart. That was amazing. You know, you're so sexy. It's like, I love that. That feels good to be in those kinds of relationships, right? Yeah.
That was so well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, really. That was great what you just shared. It hit home for me. Yeah, I think again, like I'll look at it through the lens of like shame. Like, what does shame do? Like, well, Brene Brown describes shame as like an intense, painful feeling that essentially impairs our ability to feel worthy of love and belonging. Okay. So if you look at what external validation does, is it really like when we're in shame and we're seeking it from that shadow side, we're giving away our authority. But on the positive side to that, it can really be that sense of belonging. It can be, you know, someone says something nice, it can feel like, wow, like I do feel like I belong. And that sense of belonging is what heals shame, right? So again, if you look at it, it's like the same action of seeking external validation, with the intention being openness and not, you know, desperation and looking to get your worthiness, you know, bucket filled. It can be very healing and very therapeutic. right? So again, the intention behind why we're seeking this is so critical, right? And if we want to learn how to internally validate, we have to have balance. Okay, so that's really key. But yes, it feels good. It makes me feel more competent. It makes me feel special. I love that feeling of feeling special. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a good feeling, and that's the feeling that I think I get in intimate relationships, like with a romantic partner, and it's monogamous. It's like, this person is my special person. You know what I mean? Like they make me feel special. They make me feel chosen, and that is very much external. It's an external form of validation. And then what you said, I almost just called you Callan. That's funny. It's so habitual, right? Reno. Is that it allows us to see what we don't see in ourselves. What you said made me think that, because it's like, you know, when we're, for example, like in my singing, like my coach is like, this sounds really good, like this part of your voice, let's focus more on this. I'm like, I didn't see that. So her validation allowed me to see something that I don't see in myself, that I can therefore then grow and develop. And if you think of like the coaching or the counseling or the therapeutic process, that's what we're offering to people. Is it's like, let me hold the mirror up to you so you can see yourself in all your parts, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the sacred, the divine. Like, I'm going to hold this mirror up for you. That is external validation, right? It's so beautiful. So yeah.
Can I say one more thing? Because you're speaking like gosh. I remember, I don't know where this came from, but it was like, I got this download, and I'm gonna get woo-woo here for a moment. And the download was, you are God experiencing itself. You are God experiencing and experiencing itself. And I know that that word or that languaging maybe like brings some stuff up for people. I'm also wearing a cross, but I'm not religious. I just, you know, I'm sort of I'm just like open. I welcome wisdom and brilliance from all places and all ways. And so I remember when I received this download, it was, we are God, or we are life expressing and experiencing itself. And so I think in these moments that we're describing of sort of external validation, it's like that process is happening. You know, it's like life is like realizing, recognizing, remembering, experiencing itself, and that's like a really beautiful thing. You know, it's information, it's a relationship, it's a dialogue, it's a love making as well. You know, so I think that that, like, you know, like we're pointing to here, there's value there. There's value. And how can it all know itself if it's not reflecting itself back to itself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I made off the top about self and other. We can't have one without the other, right? They go together. So
totally.
Yeah. I feel grateful.
That's full circle. I like that. That was full circle. That's cool.
Yeah, the harmony feels good today. I feel good about this. So do you guys feel complete, or do you want to share anything else before we wrap up?
I feel complete.
Me too.
Wonderful. Well, we're not complete. We're going to see you next week for part 2 of this. We're going to dive into the internal validation aspect of things and how to start cultivating that and restoring balance. If you do see yourself as having more over-reliance on the external, how can we start to heal this part of ourselves so we can come back into wholeness and more worthiness intrinsically? So thank you to my co-host today for sharing your lovely thoughts and feelings and wisdom. And we'll see you next week for part 2 of this episode. Ciao for now.